Good morning, everyone, and thank you for attending the Professional Development webinar, What's Holding You Back? Achieving Success. That's going to be presented by Talia. So before we get started, I just want to cover a couple of things that are new at CGU. So one of them is me. I'm the new Director of Alumni Engagement. My name is Rachel Jimenez. I used to be the Assistant Director of Alumni Engagement at the Drucker School of Management, and I started in my role as the Director for CGU in August. So I'm kind of new, I guess. And then we have a new Assistant Director of Alumni Engagement for the Drucker School, the person who replaced me, and that is Shaheen Clounier. So anybody that is from the Drucker School, you'll definitely want to know her name. We also have a new website. In general, CGU has a new website, and there's also a new alumni website, so I would encourage you to take a look at that and definitely review your alumni benefits. I think there's a lot of benefits that you have that you may not realize you have, so definitely take a look at that. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. My email will be in the next slide. We are also going to be having more webinars. So one of them is Personal Power at Work, Why You Need It and How to Get It, virtual networking, and building your personal brand in the digital age. So those are to be determined. They should be coming up in March, if not sooner. Some of them might be in April, but we'll definitely try to have at least one a month, if not a couple. Coming soon, I'm looking for alumni volunteers, so please let me know if you're interested. Talia, who's teaching the webinar today, is actually one of our alums, and if you are an alum and you have something interesting to share that would be helpful to your peers, please send me an email and let me know. We have a wealth of knowledge in our alumni base, and I'd love if you would be willing to share that. Also, if you haven't seen any alumni events in your area and you wish there were some, reach out to me. Really, I'm looking for ideas of places that are good places for people to meet up. I will help coordinate and plan it. A lot of it is just getting ideas from our amazing alumni, and then I'll take care of it, the rest from there. There will be an alumni survey coming soon within the next week or so, and that will be asking about what you're interested in, what kind of events, where you want these events to be, how far you're willing to drive, if you prefer more webinars, just any ideas. We want to know what you're looking for so we can really be providing value to you. So if you want more services, take the survey and let us know. Even if you think we're doing a great job, let us know that as well so we can keep up the work or change our programming to meet your needs. And it should only take about 5 minutes. Some alumni events are coming up, so keep an eye on your inbox and social media for those. We're constantly having events, inviting people back to campus, doing things all over the world, really. So make sure you're checking your emails from us. And if you haven't been receiving emails, you might want to send me an email or check your spam box. We might not have your email on file, or it might be going to your clutter or junk, so definitely check that out. And we're also going to be having a new alumni directory in the mid-March. And that is going to be a great program for virtual networking, and we'll talk about that and have webinars to help you really understand how to use that tool as well. It's really exciting. I think you'll really enjoy that. Just so you can keep in touch, this is my email address. We are on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and we have a survey. So anytime you change jobs or move and you want to make sure your information is up to date, this is the link that you would need to go to, and it's on our alumni website as well. And you don't have to fill everything out. If one small detail in your life changes and you want us to know about that, you can fill out that survey. And if you don't remember that link, then you can always just send me an email, and I'm happy to update your record for you. So before we get started, I also wanted to do a quick bio of Talia so that you know who is coming on this webinar for you. So Talia is the co-founder and president of the Mavenly & Company, which is dedicated to supporting young professionals in designing a career and lifestyle with purpose. She received her bachelor's degree in psychology from American University and her master's degree in positive organizational psychology and evaluation from Claremont Graduate University. Before pursuing her graduate degree, she had the privilege of serving as a leadership development consultant for a women's nonprofit organization, traveling to nearly 30 universities in the U.S. and Canada to facilitate workshops and coach women on building leadership skills, managing teams, and communicating effectively. As an organizational psychologist and coach, Talia now travels to cities across the U.S., facilitating workshops, coaching programs, and corporate trainings through Mavenly & Co. Whether it's helping young professionals find meaning in their work, navigate a career transition, or build confidence in their skill set, Talia is energized by having meaningful, authentic conversations to help others grow. Her motto is, "You can't be anything you want to be, but you can be a whole lot more of who you are," by Tom Rath. I've had the pleasure of working with Talia just over the few weeks planning this, and she is amazing, and I really think that you'll be very happy with this webinar. So without further ado, I'm going to turn the controls over to her, and we will get started.
Well, everyone, I'm so excited to finally be doing this webinar. We've been talking about it, Rachel and I, for a while now, and it's super exciting to finally make this work and make this happen. Let me just put this into full screen. Perfect. So thank you, Rachel, for the warm introduction, kind introduction. As Rachel mentioned, my name is Talia, and I am the co-founder and president of Mavenly & Co. And we will dive pretty deep into our topic for today, but I did want to give a little bit of a background as to where Mavenly started, why Mavenly started, and the work we're doing, because it definitely informs the topic for today. So in my year of traveling as a consultant, my co-founder and I both realized through conversations we were having with women in the college setting that there were not enough resources out there for them to really figure out what life was going to look like after college. And as you all know, it's the first time once you're done with school that the path is not necessarily clear and that you have to start making decisions for yourself when it comes to what you want to do, what kind of life you want to lead, what you want to work towards, what kind of person you want to be. And these are all pretty big and tough questions to answer. So we sought out to become a resource for young professionals. And we initially started sharing stories on a blog, and the blog then grew into a podcast we now have on iTunes, and we realized that there's so much content online and that a lot of kind of magic was being lost in people coming together in real life and in person to connect. So that led to us starting our workshops, started doing workshops in cities all across the country last June, and it's been absolutely wonderful to meet so many professionals who are so ready to get meaningful work done and do something that feels purposeful and intentional, and to really define success for themselves. So our philosophy itself is very much based in principles of positive psychology, organizational behavior, and all that good stuff that I studied at CGU, graduated last May, so it has not even been a full year. But our curriculum is really based in this idea that until you know yourself, it's really hard to make any kind of decision for yourself that feels true to who you are. And that self-awareness is really built around three pieces. The first is values, so what's important to you in your life, in your work, in your relationships. The second is strengths. What is it that really lights you up and energizes you? What are you really good at and really enjoy doing at the same time? And the third is priorities. Given your values and given your strengths, how can you start to prioritize where your time and energy is going in order to get to where you want to get to? So that's where the decisions stem from, and that's where you can start building intentional habits into your daily lives that get you to that point that you deem as successful or as kind of the ideal for who you are and where you want to be. And it's then that you kind of get the clarity and focus and direction in order to move forward and take action on your career path that feels, again, true to who you are and is full of purpose and just a sense of authenticity to you. So that's a bit of a background, and as I've been saying, we do these workshops, we do coaching, so a lot of what we pull from our experiences are lessons that we learned, and a lot of those lessons will be reflected in some of the case studies I share today and some of the topics that I bring up in the conversation. So the topic, as you know, is achieving success and uncovering what's holding you back. And I was preparing for this, and as I was kind of taking notes on what I wanted to say and how I wanted to open, I started to think about who is on the webinar today. What kind of person would this title attract, and who is the audience here? And it's hard because I can't see any of you or meet any of you in person, maybe one day, but I had to draw on just some kind of assumptions that I had to make to see who I was speaking to today here on the webinar. And given the topic being achieving success and uncovering what's holding you back, the two assumptions I drew were, one, that success is, in your mind, something you haven't achieved yet, right? Because if you're sitting here listening to a webinar on achieving success, it's something that you want to achieve and that you're working towards, but the underlying assumption there is that you haven't achieved it yet. And the second thing, with the tagline being uncovering what's holding you back, tells me that there's an awareness you have around the fact that something is holding you back, and you know something is. You feel like you're being held back somehow in some way, but you don't quite know what it is or why you're feeling like you're being held back. So these are two assumptions I've made. Might not necessarily be true for each of you, but I think this is just an interesting perspective to keep in mind as we're talking about this topic and thinking about, you know, what success really is and what it means to achieve success, and why you potentially don't feel like you've achieved it quite yet. So when we think about this idea of success, it's a pretty abstract and kind of vague concept, right? It's hard to measure success, to quantify it, to get your hands on it and to say, okay, now I've been successful, like this, I made it. This is the point that I've been waiting to get to. And handy dandy Google, of course, gave me a bunch of different ways to define success, and the two that I came on were the ones that you see right now on the slide. So the first definition of success is pretty much as abstract and vague as success itself. It says the accomplishment of a purpose. And I liked this because it shows to you that success means something different for everybody, because accomplishment feels different for everybody, and accomplishing a purpose is different for everyone. So this idea of being successful, it's important to note that whatever narrative you build around what success is and looks like and feels like is very personal to who you are. And the question to ask yourself is, what is it that I want to accomplish that feels purposeful? So that's one perspective that I liked. The other was success is liking yourself, liking what you do, and liking how you do it. And I'm going to read it out one more time. Success is liking yourself, liking what you do, and liking how you do it. So the question that then comes up is this one, and you might be rolling your eyes, who am I? But if you think back at that quote, success is liking yourself, who you are, what you do, how you do it, you have to have a good understanding of who you are to like who you are, and a good understanding of what you want to do to like what you're doing, and a good understanding of how you're doing things in your life, right? What kind of life you're leading. So this idea of success is very closely tied to who you are and knowing who you are and acting from a place of authenticity that speaks to your values and speaks to your strengths, so that the narrative you build around it can be yours and only yours. It's not someone else's definition of success, it's your own, based off of, again, who you know yourself to be. And one of my favorite quotes by Tom Rath, Rachel read it in the beginning as she read off my bio, is, you can't be anything you want to be, but you can be a whole lot more of who you already are. And I think this just stands out so much to me, especially in our society today, because we're kind of bombarded with so much distraction, and there are so many possibilities and options and choices. You can start your own business, you can be an entrepreneur, you can be a blogger full-time, you can be a CEO, you can really do whatever you want, right? We're kind of raised with this mentality too, especially us millennials, that we can do whatever we want to do. But when we're given such a wide net to cast, it's really hard to know what direction to turn in. So the more we can become aware of who we actually are, that's who we can become a little bit more of. And I know that's a little cliche, but it's a good framework, I think, to keep in mind as we continue talking throughout the day. So again, we're given all these choices, right? You could do this, you could do that, and the reality is you'll probably be great at a lot of things, right? There's no one thing that you should be doing necessarily. But what's hard is that when we're given so many options, we fall into the paradox of choice. And if any of you are familiar with this, the paradox of choice is this idea that the more options we're given, the harder it is to make a decision, and the less satisfied we are. Research has shown that we'll be less happy with the decision we do make, because what if we chose the wrong thing, or what if the other option would have been better? So it puts us in a kind of sticky position where we like that we have so many options, but it's also kind of a blessing and a curse because it makes it a lot harder to define success for ourselves, to figure out what we want to do without what our parents want us to do or without what we thought we would be doing 10 years ago. So this brings us again back to this idea of self-awareness, right? When you're faced with the paradox of choice, when you're faced with all these different ways to be successful in life, we need to come back to ourselves for a minute and take time to intentionally think about who it is that we are. And self-awareness is the conscious knowledge of your own character. And you can kind of define character in many ways in and of itself, but the way we're going to go with that is your character is made up of your thoughts, your feelings, your motives, and desires. And the more you can take time in your life to reflect on what your thoughts are, what you're feeling, what your motives are, and what you really truly desire for yourself, that's where the magic starts to happen, and that's where action can stem from. So I think what's hard about it is a lot of things. Self-awareness means facing truths about ourselves that we might not necessarily want to face. I always explain it as kind of looking at yourself in the mirror for an extended period of time and getting closer and closer and closer and seeing all the things that you might not want to see, what you might initially see as imperfections, but what at the end of the day really do make up who you are. And with a lot of that reflection comes a lot of fear, right? You'll see a lot of fears start to come up in a lot of our coaching clients and in our workshops. We see a wide variety of them, but I think the 4 that stick out most to us in these moments of self-reflection and kind of building an awareness around who you really are and what you really want for yourself in life is first the fear of failure, which I think is pretty prevalent for a lot of people in different ways. The other one we've been seeing a lot is fear of success, which is really interesting to me because the underlying assumption with the fear of success is that you know you're going to be successful and you're afraid of what that means, or you're afraid of what that'll do to you, your relationships, you're afraid of kind of what that change will bring. But there's still this kind of like, again, assumption that I know I will be successful, and that's what scares me. The third is the fear of stagnation, or the fear of being stuck where you are. So not seeing room or opportunity for growth and development where you are makes a lot of people scared. They feel uncomfortable, they don't want to stay where they are, they look for a new job, but they don't really even know what they're looking for. But it's this fear of, again, just being stuck and not growing, not moving forward in life. And the fourth fear that a lot of people have to face is the fear of uncertainty, right? So I might not know what success looks like for me quite yet, but I want to explore that. And the unknown, as scary as it is, can also open a lot of doors for opportunity, for growth, for development, for fulfillment in your work. And it's not until these fears can kind of be faced head on that we can break through them and really open up a world of possibility for ourselves. So the question that I want to ask, and this is something that will take some good amount of time to think about and reflect on, is what would happen if you let yourself be successful? And I'm just going to kind of pause for a good 20 seconds here and ask it one more time and have you maybe just think about what initially comes to mind when I ask this question. What would happen if you let yourself be successful? And if you have a sheet of paper, maybe jot down a couple words that come to mind, maybe something you see for yourself. And what's interesting to think about here is that the message that this question sends is that a lot of times we aren't letting ourselves be successful, and we are the ones that are holding ourselves back. Yes, there might be limits externally that we might not have control over, but what you do have control over is the mindset you have around success and what you allow yourself to think and to feel and to do. And I challenge you to kind of ask yourself that question, right? Not just this one, what would happen if you let yourself be successful, but also what am I allowing in my life, or what am I not allowing in my life? And kind of taking ownership over that and putting yourself in the driver's seat and taking control over the results you start to see for yourself in your life. So what I'm going to do next is jump into 8 lessons and kind of mind tricks that we've experienced with people we've been working with, and that also kind of are backed by a lot of theories in psychology and positive psychology. And the first is start with the feeling. I think it's very common in even a lot of the like pop psych books out there to think about happiness as this thing to be pursued, right? So we act in the pursuit of feeling a certain thing. We work really hard in order to make a lot of money, in order to be successful, in order to be happy. So it's all a means to an end, and it's always this hope that we're going to feel something at the end of that tunnel. But if we can shift our minds to start with the feeling instead, we can then act out of a place that feels more authentic to who we are and feels a little bit more motivating. So in terms of success, instead of thinking about, again, I will work hard in order to make money, in order to feel successful, in order to be happy, if we start with what success feels like to you, and that answer will be different for each and every one of you, but let's say success to me, if I imagine my life being successful, I feel free. Freedom is what that allows me to feel. So if I start with wanting to feel freedom, what do I have to do tomorrow that allows me to feel free? Because then the focus is on the feeling of feeling free, not so much on the focus of working hard and making the money and achieving quote-unquote success. So if I were in person with you, I would say, does that make sense? And I would hopefully see all of your heads nodding. It's hard to get the feedback through a computer screen, but if you're interested in this kind of idea and perspective of starting with feeling and moving from a place of emotion, Danielle Laporte has a wonderful website, great resources around this. She also has a planner that she has been doing really well with, that instead of scheduling like the tasks for the day, it's what do you want to feel today? What do you want to feel a week from now? What do you want to feel in a year? And let the actions and the goals stem from that desired feeling. So that's the first one. The second one is no more buts. So the idea here is that we make a lot of excuses for ourselves because it's easy to stay where we are. It's easy because it's comfortable. It's easy because it's safe. It's easy because we feel security and stability where we are. And we make excuses to justify our comfort. And what we see a lot of the time is people will come to us saying, you know, I really love doing, you know, fashion. I really love fashion blogging, but, you know, but I don't know how to start a website. And that's just the end of the conversation for them, right? I really want to do this, but I don't know how to do whatever it is that I need to do. So I'm just gonna stick to what I'm doing. It's easier that way. But if you instead change, and this is one little tiny difference that has a huge impact, if you change the word but to and, it takes you from an either or mentality to a problem-solving approach, right? So in that example, I really love fashion blogging, and I know that I'll be successful fashion blogging. I will feel the freedom I want to feel. I will feel the energy I want to feel doing fashion blogging, for example. And at the same time, I don't know how to start a website. So given that those are both true for me, what does that mean? What do I have to do so that I can start my blog? Okay, I have to learn how to build a website, or I have to find someone who can help me build my website. So it takes you to action instead of kind of at a dead stop where you think, well, I want this, but I can't have it because of whatever, so that's just that, and it's just the way it is. So changing the but to the and I think here, just start to pay more attention to the excuses you give yourself sometimes, or the reasons that you are where you are, right? So if you're looking to change companies or you're looking to move up, why haven't you yet? What is that's holding you back, and what excuses or justifications are you giving yourself? And if you see any buts coming up there, that's where that one word can make a big difference. So give that one a try. The third one is information is power. So very much tied to number 2 that I just shared about changing the buts to the ands. When your but and your excuse is not knowing something, don't let that stop you. A lot of times it's just information you need to gather, things you need to learn, people you need to reach out to give you the strength you need to actually take action. So if it's that you don't know how to do something or who to turn to or how to start your own business, not many people know how to do those things. So don't let that stop you, because on the flip side of that, a lot of people do know how to do those things. So it's figuring out how much information you need so that you feel ready and capable and informed enough to actually make some moves for yourself. So if there are things that, again, in those excuses point to a lack of information, a lack of knowledge, don't let yourself stop there. The fourth is this idea of the mountain. We talk a lot about this in our work, and I think for many of us, the idea of success is something that's so far away from us and so, again, just like abstract and hard to make feel real and tangible and concrete. And we think about, our biggest goals and dreams and desires, and we see them as these really, really high mountains miles away, really far from where we are now. And because it's this seemingly impossible thing to reach, we, again, kind of don't even know what the first step is to take, or feel like, well, what's one step? I have to take a million steps, so what's the point? It's too far, it's too otherworldly, it's too idealistic. Who am I to achieve success in that kind of way? And again, it keeps us where we are. It stops us from taking even one step forward. But I think one question that is really helpful to ask in moments of, what should I do here? Should I start this blog? Should I ask for this raise? Should I do whatever it is that I want to do? The one question to ask is this getting me one step closer to the mountain? Is this taking me one step further away from the mountain? Or is this just keeping me where I am? If it's taking me one step closer, then it's one step closer. That's worth taking the step for, right? Because day after day, you take one more step, you have one conversation with somebody about whatever it is you're thinking about, that's one step closer. So as long as it's not taking you away from the mountain, it's a go. It's a green light. Take that step and remember what the mountain is that you're working toward, and create as clear of a picture of that mountain as you can, knowing that always there will be deviations from the path and not everything goes according to plan, as I'm sure many of you know given life experiences. But if you have an idea of what direction to head in, start heading there. Take that one step. Even if it's maybe not the best step, it's at least a step. And it's, again, resting on this understanding that you're not going to reach the mountain in one step. Success does not happen overnight. It takes time, and it takes those little steps. So being patient with yourself, I think, is really important in all of this, in all of life more generally, but particularly in achieving so-called success and getting what it is that you want for yourself. Number 5 is measure your progress. So in the metaphor of the mountain, progress is a step forward, but a lot of times when we think about success, again, it's hard to measure. It's hard to know if we're on the right track, if we're doing the right thing, and when the goals are seemingly so big and far away from us, it's hard to realize the small successes we're making. And the framework that I'm sure many of you are familiar with is the SMART goal setting framework. And they've added a new component to this called AIM. And AIM SMART stands for, well, okay, I'm going to start with SMART and then go to AIM. So setting a SMART goal means setting a goal that's specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and timely. AIM, the A stands for acceptable minimum, I stands for ideal, and M stands for middle. So I'll repeat those. SMART is specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and timely. AIM is acceptable minimum, ideal, and middle. So to give you an example for this person we've made up who wants to be a fashion blogger, She is super excited about becoming one, but doesn't know where the heck to start. The idea of starting a blog, there's so many steps that it takes to start a blog. Starting a blog in itself can't be one thing you put on your to-do list because there are like a million mini to-dos under that bigger to-do. So to start with aiming smart, her goal instead of starting a blog would be every Wednesday at 2 p.m. I'm going to write a 500-word blog post about up-and-coming founders of new fashion businesses or clothing lines in the city of Atlanta, right? So she's getting super specific about how many words she's going to be writing, when she's going to be writing them by, what she's going to be writing her blog posts about, and on what platform. So she's going to be using Squarespace. So there you go. You got the steps laid out. Her acceptable minimum, so if we're going to the AIM bit of the framework, her acceptable minimum is 1 blog post a month. Her ideal is 1 a week. And her middle ground there is 2. If I can do 2 a month, I'll be good. So that then takes, again, this seemingly big mountain of starting a blog and becoming a fashion blogger to, okay, what that means for me this Wednesday is a 500-word blog post. And if I don't write it, that's okay because my acceptable middle ground here is 2 a month. That feels a lot more doable and realistic and easy than looking at my planner and reading, become a fashion blogger, start a blog, right? So there's a difference, kind of the micro versus the macro piece of it. And again, having that way to measure her progress is a lot easier because she knows every blog post, every word she writes is a step closer to that mountain. The 6th is gains versus losses. So the idea here is that a lot of times when we're trying to make decisions about what we want to do or should do or, you know, again, how we define success for ourselves, it's, I say, most common to think about the pros and cons, right? But pros and cons, at the end of the day, you've done it before. The pros cancel out the cons and you're left with nothing and it doesn't do anything for you. And the other problem with thinking about pros and cons is that a lot of times your cons or your pros might be weighted more than the other side, but it's a numbers game. It's 5 against 5, so it leaves you with nothing. But if you can think of it instead in terms of gains and losses, it can shift the way you think about what your consequence is of what you're going to do or not do. So to give an example to this, there's a woman I'm working with who has been in a job for about 10 years and is making good money. She's fine where she is, but she really wants to start out on her own. She wants to start her own accounting firm and has all these ideas about what she wants to do. And what she came to realize was that by staying where she is, there's not much she's gaining, right? But there's a lot that she's losing by staying where she is. If you flip that to its opposite, if she were to start her own firm, there's a lot to gain there. There's also potentially something to lose there, but it's different than thinking of it in terms of pros and cons. And the way that you can flip that and think about the kind of different options is, again, the consequence of doing something as well as the consequence of not doing something. There is an action and there's a flip side of that, the inaction. And there are reasons why one might be better than the other if you think of it in terms of what you have to gain and then, again, what you have to lose. And the 7th is assessing your results. So if you're seeing that you're stuck in a job after a year, after 5 years, after 10 years, that is a result that you might not feel that great about, right? But there's a reason why that result is still a part of your life. And if it's a change that you want to see, you have to make a change. You have to adjust accordingly. So in the assessment that you're making of the results you're seeing, what are the things that need to maybe look a little bit differently? And how are the results you're seeing a reflection of your thoughts about your work? And I'm going to dive into that a little bit because I know, again, that seems a little bit abstract. But there's this idea that the results we see in our lives are direct reflections of our thoughts. So to give an example to this, we're going to think about a circumstance. And a circumstance is something that's objectively neutral in our lives. A circumstance is not good or bad until we think something about it. So if you think about a circumstance being that you haven't gotten promoted in 2 years, the thought you can have about that is that you're worthless, that you're directionless, that you're incapable of moving up, that no one is seeing the work you're doing, and that you're not successful, deemingly successful in your job. And the feelings that that thought leads to is feeling inferior, feeling unmotivated, unappreciated, and maybe angry at your team, angry at your manager. The action you take feeling those things about the thought is that you're less engaged at work, you start to keep to yourself, so you stop engaging with the people around you, and the result is that you see no growth in your position, your work continues to go unnoticed because you're not talking about your work anymore. Time passes, and you've still not gotten a promotion. You continue to feel worthless because you haven't gotten a promotion, but you're not getting promoted because you're less engaged at work, you're keeping to yourself, and no one knows what you're doing. So the challenge here is to reflect on what the thoughts are that are leading to the results you're seeing in your circumstance, and to challenge the truth of that initial thought. So is it true in that situation that you're worthless and that you're incapable and that you're not deemingly successful? It might feel true, but the facts are that you've just not gotten promoted. Not getting promoted doesn't mean you're incapable. So the step to take after that is to flip it to its opposite. So instead of thinking instead of thinking I am worthless, you're flipping it to I'm not worthless, and here are the reasons why I'm not worthless, and kind of listing out the facts there that can help build the confidence around the opposite of the initial thought you were thinking. So in this example, the circumstance is the same. You haven't gotten promoted in 2 years, but the thought, instead of me being worthless, is, you know what, maybe other people are just too busy to notice what I'm contributing. And instead of feeling angry about it, I'm going to feel empathetic to my team members. I'm going to feel empathetic towards my boss. And I'm going to be energized to continue to do good work so it does get noticed. And I'm going to be determined to reach out to help my team, to share my successes, to hear about other people's successes. And the result of that will be to feel recognized, to feel appreciated, and to have a conversation with my boss, right? So that circumstance can start to shift. We can start to make changes in our circumstances based on just a shifting thought. So we went from thinking negatively about the circumstance to thinking more positively and in a more hopeful way, so that the result then becomes a different reflection. That was a lot. I talked at you all for a long time, and we're at about 2:40 Eastern Time, but I do want to leave you all with this one last exercise and bit of reflection that you all can do on your own time. And this is something that I pulled from my last class at CGU with Dr. Jeffrey Yip. And the prompt is, think about your life 10 years from now and imagine that everything has gone as well as it possibly could have. You've worked hard and you've achieved all the goals you set for yourself. You've achieved success. Think about that for a few moments before writing anything down, but what you're going to write down in this reflection is what this life looks like, almost like you're watching yourself in a movie and kind of scripting a day in the life. What does this life look like? What does it feel like? And get really specific with this. Try to paint a very detailed picture for what you imagine. And to end the reflection, you're going to write down one thing that you can do today that your future self would thank you for. Thank you guys so much for listening to all of that. I, again, wish more than anything that we could all be in the same room because I would love to meet you all, but some ways to keep up with the work we're doing at Mavenly. Like I mentioned, we do have 6 to 8 week coaching programs. We do workshops, retreats, both in private settings and in corporate settings. Our 2 upcoming events are this weekend. If you're anywhere near Nashville, please join us. We're doing a full day workshop on crafting your career path, and we will be in Florida, West Palm Beach, at the end of April doing a 3-day retreat for women only, sorry boys. And here's my contact information. I will be sending this out to Rachel to send on to all of you, and you will also be getting a meditation to download that will kind of help put you in just a different mindset to help you envision what success looks like for yourself which will also be on our podcast that you can find on iTunes. It's called Women, Work, and Worth. And I will also send out a link to Rachel to share a scheduling platform with you all. If you would like to schedule a free 30-minute coaching session, consultation, I would love to chat with each and every one of you. So I think that's all. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Talia. If anybody has questions, please go ahead and put them in the chat now. Janice said set, thank you. But if anybody has questions, we have a couple more minutes if you have any questions that you're willing to share with the group. Although I can say them, if you send them to me privately, I can ask a question and I won't say your name if you don't want me to. But if nobody asks questions, we'll give them a couple seconds, Talia. But thank you so much. That was an amazing workshop. If everybody could, say thank you or give a note to Talia of how amazing she did, I'm sure she would appreciate that. It's hard when you're talking to yourself and you feel like you can't get vocal feedback or visual feedback, so you kind of feel like you're in a room talking to yourself.
Yep. But it was fun. I still had fun.
Okay, some people are saying it sounded good. No problem. Okay, well, we'll give them a couple minutes, but if we don't get any questions, then thank you again, Talia. And thank you, everybody, for attending. Give me a couple of days. I'm going to create a quick survey. If you could take it to just let us know your feedback, if you appreciate this webinar, what kind of webinars you're looking for in the future. And then I'll send you the PowerPoint slides and the meditation that she was talking about and any other materials that Talia wants to share with you. And I'll also send you a recording. So if you popped in late, then you will also get the recording. Looks like everybody had a great time. So thank you again, Talia, and I will see you guys at the next webinar.